Can a global ranking measure freedom in a society that values harmony more than confrontation? Writing on 2 of June 2026, the Diplomat explores the friction between international media rankings and Singapore's specific governance model. While global indexes often label the city-state as simply unfree, the piece suggests a philosophy rooted in Confucian traditions and a preference for social stability over adversarial reporting. It raises a question about the metrics used to judge global liberty. Are these rankings measuring universal rights, or merely the degree to which a nation's media environment mirrors Western political ideals? Written by Leonie Spongenberg in The Diplomat, narrated for Arva. The 2026 Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders once again ranked Singapore near the bottom of global media rankings, placing it 123rd worldwide. It fell below several West African states affected by political instability and conflict, like Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. To many outside observers, the result would appear unsurprising. Singapore maintains extensive media regulation, with mainstream media operating in close alignment with state institutions. Yet viewing Singapore simply as an unfree media system misses the political and cultural logic that has long defined the country's approach to journalism. International press freedom rankings tend to reflect a largely Western understanding of what a free press should look like. In this view, journalism should function with minimal state involvement, prioritize unrestricted expression, and act as an independent watchdog. Singapore complicates the idea that there is only one legitimate way to approach the relationship between the state, society, and the press. Singapore's media system is heavily influenced by Confucian traditions and the broader notion of Asian values, which have shaped the country's political development after independence. Confucian thought traditionally places greater emphasis on harmony, hierarchy, and collective well-being than on confrontation and individual rights. Unrestricted expression is not automatically considered virtuous if it risks social fragmentation or political instability. Journalism is therefore often expected to reinforce social responsibility rather than openly challenge political authority. This perspective has become deeply embedded in Singapore's governance model. Since independence, the ruling People's Action Party, PAP, has consistently argued that communal stability, racial harmony, and economic development require careful management of public discourse. Singapore's first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, repeatedly rejected the idea that Western-style press systems could simply be transplanted into Asian societies with different historical experiences and communitarian traditions. As Lee famously argued, freedom of the press, freedom of the news media, must be subordinated to the overriding needs of Singapore and to the primacy of purpose of an elected government. These ideas later evolved into the state-promoted discourse of Asian values, which played a major role in shaping Singapore's political development in the late 20th century. Political leaders argued that societies influenced by Confucian values placed greater emphasis on collectivism, consensus, and responsible discourse than on highly individualistic notions of unrestricted expression. Media restraint was presented less as a form of repression than as a necessary tool for preserving public order and national cohesion. Journalists were expected to report with sensitivity, avoid sensationalism, and contribute to social order rather than intensify conflict. These cultural ideas developed alongside a tightly regulated media system. Laws such as the Newspaper and Printing Presses Act, and more recently, the Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act, continue to give the state significant influence over the media landscape. Government-linked ownership structures further reinforce alignment between mainstream media outlets and state priorities. These restrictions exist within a society where many citizens continue to prioritize stability, efficiency, and economic security over adversarial politics. Public confidence in state institutions remains comparatively high. A 2024 survey found that 77% of respondents trusted the government, significantly above global averages. Singapore's political legitimacy rests less on liberal democratic participation than on performance, competent governance, low corruption, public safety, and prosperity. Press freedom is often framed as something that must be balanced against broader social and political priorities. Foreign journalists working in Singapore often describe a media environment influenced both by formal regulation and by broader cultural expectations. Investigative or highly adversarial reporting, while common in many Western newsrooms, can sometimes be perceived as unnecessarily confrontational or socially disruptive. As one foreign journalist based in Singapore noted, investigative journalism is often perceived as disruptive to societal harmony. As a result, journalists frequently adapt their reporting styles to align with local norms and sensitivities. But Singapore's media landscape is far from uniform. Many journalists, editors, and independent media voices support a more liberal understanding of press freedom and have continued to push for greater openness, broader public debate, and stronger protections for journalistic independence. Especially among younger Singaporeans, attitudes toward public discourse and political participation have gradually become more diverse and globally connected. Understanding Singapore's political culture does not erase concerns about media restrictions. Rather, it shows that debates about press freedom are shaped by different ideas about governance, public responsibility, and the role journalism should play in society. This tension is precisely why Singapore remains such an important case for debates about global press freedom. International rankings by organizations like Reporters Without Borders and Freedom House play a vital role in documenting legal restrictions, political intimidation, and attacks on journalists. They provide necessary comparative benchmarks and highlight genuine threats to media independence worldwide. But rankings also flatten complex realities into numerical scores that can obscure local historical and cultural contexts. Singapore demonstrates that media systems cannot always be neatly categorized through binary distinctions, such as free versus unfree. The country combines extensive political controls with economic openness, a highly educated citizenry, and significant public trust in state institutions. Singapore also challenges the long-standing assumption that economic modernization naturally leads to Western-style liberalism, including in the media sphere. This does not invalidate global press freedom rankings entirely, but it does suggest they should be interpreted with greater contextual sensitivity. Press freedom is not only a legal condition, it is also rooted in cultural values, moral philosophies, historical experiences, and competing understandings of what ends journalism should ultimately serve. Singapore's media system may frustrate defenders of liberal press freedom, but it raises the sometimes uncomfortable question of whether global indexes are measuring universal principles or conformity to a set of specifically Western political ideals. The case of Singapore suggests that the distinction may be less clear-cut than global rankings often imply.